Okay, you ready? Go.
Yeah, let's go.
Do it.
Yeah,
this is great.
This
Do
is
the
perfect.
sponsors. Oh. Okay.
This episode is powered by Devitt Insurance, trusted by UK bikers for over 85 years. Whether you ride one bike or a whole garage full, Charlie, Devitt's got you covered. From single bike policies like mine to multi-bike policies like yours, insurance that can save you time and money. Devitt make it easy to help protect what you ride.
Quite right.
Tailored insurance quotes, practical prices, and highly rated on Trustpilot. Head to devittinsurance.com today.
Well, it's a beautiful sunny day. We are on our way up to West London, to the Duke of London, to sit down and interview a really cool woman called Aimee Fuller, Olympic snowboarder, presenter, vivacious, full of life. I think this one's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to hearing about her career, her early days racing motorbikes. She also does a very cool Monday Mile podcast. It's a mental health podcast, getting people together, doing something and chatting about it. Sounds familiar. So that'll be good. Yeah, looking forward to it. Just heading up to meet Charlie now. And should be a good day.
Somebody's got to do the professional.
Give me your best radio
your
voice.
professional radio voice. Hi. It's more your Pornhub voice, isn't it? Really?
Oh, come on now.
Come on then.
Have you watched my channel?
No.
Hello and welcome to The Nod, a mindful motorcycle podcast.
Aimee,
Yes.
I've been Googling you and looking at your YouTube channel and stuff like that, and you quite a colourful life. You've packed a lot in at a very young age, didn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, the most importantly, forget the snowboarding and the Olympics, but motorcycling.
Yes.
You started very young. Your dad, I'm guessing, was into it.
Yeah, I'd say bikes built the foundation of my career as a professional snowboarder.
Yeah.
So when I was 4, my dad bought me a Suzuki 50cc quad bike for the garden. You can imagine my mum wasn't best pleased about that.
Yeah.
And we took it down to Dartford motocross track, and it was too slow. And I couldn't keep up with the boys who were on motocross bikes.
Yeah.
So 6 months later, that got upgraded to a 50cc KTM. And then I started racing from the ages of 6 to 8, did the British Championships, used to stand on the lineup with 30 odd boys, racing Kent and Sussex. And I'd really say I learned so much from that experience, reading lines and transitions in the track. So when I did eventually transition over to snowboarding, I had such an ability to read natural terrain. It kind of gave me a head start as far as the snowboarding went.
And I suppose all the balance as well, and the core, the stability, because it's a lot of what your body does on a motorcycle. On motorcycle affects the motorcycle, and I'm sure it's the same with snowboarding.
Yeah, I guess the thing was, because I was so young, I was kind of totally unaware of the physicality of riding a motocross bike. Like now, if you were to chuck me onto a track, I'm sure I'd come off like beaten and bruised. But when you're 8 years old, you're literally looking at the lines, looking at where to overtake, and you're just opening the throttle, sitting on the back seat, boom, 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 boom. I used to love it. And I remember that high, that excitement of being on the start line. And I remember, if you got a bit of dry mud on the back of the seat and you could see it trembling from the engine and everyone's like, vroom, vroom, vroom. And I actually did motocross during an era where there's quite a few successful bike riders now. So it's Danny Webb, Gino Ray, and Laurie Squirrel. And I remember being like up with Danny Webb, elbow to elbow at the start line, and the boys just used to like hate it, and their dads would be like, "Get the girl, get the girl." Yeah. I think maybe times have changed a little bit now, but I remember like being in the start, getting that elbow me to try and get ahead of that,
Yeah.
you know, that first straight. But I think like a
And
bizarre,
that all important start, isn't it? It's just, you got to get to that first corner.
My bizarre claim to fame is that I actually broke Danny Webb's collarbone.
Well done.
I think he's probably unaware that it was me, but there you go. There's a bit of gold for you.
So you were giving the elbows back as well, were you?
Of course I was.
Absolutely, but it's always that scramble to the first
Oh,
corner,
yeah.
isn't it?
Oh, the nerves.
And it's where, and then it all releases, doesn't it? And then it's where you are for that first turn to set you up for the rest of the race,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
No, great times, and like a real solid foundation of, I suppose, shaping me as an athlete, really.
And you were pretty successful.
Yeah, I think I was all right. Like,
Yeah.
I remember, you know, sort of clearing all the tabletops, the doubles at Caterham, and always riding, you know, with the boys in the lineup of, you know, 30, 35 guys. I'd always be in the top 6. My number became like lucky number 6. My granddad would always, so it was my dad and granddad, they'd always come. My granddad would drive his big white van.
Were they bikers? Did they get you into it?
They dabbled in it
Right.
when they were teenagers, but I guess they sort of missed out on doing it as a youngster. So it's just was a passion of my dad's, and he was never ever pushy, and neither was my granddad. But it was something we just really enjoyed as a family, all going to the track. And
But it is a real family thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, when you go there, and you look at all the other riders, it's the mum, the dad, the brothers and sisters are often there. It's a whole weekend, isn't it? Barbecues. And
Yeah, definitely loved the barbecue. I don't think my mum was so keen on the motocross, which I think for obvious reasons. I
Sure,
don't know
of course.
if I'd want my daughter lining up with 30 odd guys on a track, and you know, it's quite an aggressive environment. But it was at that time where it was foot and mouth disease, so there was quite a quick shutdown to motocross, which is the point at which I started gymnastics actually, so 10 to 12. So if you combine the air awareness of gymnastics and being the elephant of the gymnastics group with reading lines and transitions on a track, you put the two together. At the age of 12, I first step on a snowboard. You've got a blank canvas for creativity.
Well, and all the bases are there, aren't they? You don't need to be taught about getting air, or being worried about getting air,
No.
hitting your landings.
It kind of just happened, and
Yeah.
I understood it. I was
And then
never
why
taught
snowboarding though? Why did you you went from motocross to gymnastics to snowboarding? Were your parents into snow or?
So we'd always been very active. So
Yeah.
I'd skied on Bromley Dry ski slope, and it was there where I also fell in love with that. And I remember seeing someone, I was super young, go from the top of Bromley Dry ski slope, air the ski mogul on a snowboard. And the minute I saw that, I was like, that is what I want to do. And I remember that so vividly. So when I first had the opportunity to try snowboarding on snow, I just instantly fell in love with it. And I think snowboarding really gave me this sense of freedom. And you guys would know as bikers, when you truly love something, anything's possible. And I remember sitting in science class, just dreaming about the next time I could maybe snowboard, or would it be possible to do the backflip that I learnt in gymnastics on a snowboard? How would it work? So they're talking about the physics of whatever we were doing at school. And I'm thinking, physically, how can I take this and put that on a snowboard? So it became my everything. And I did dabble, and I dabbled far too much in far too many sports. If you name a sport, I've done it or tried it or loved it at one point. And I remember my dad saying to me, Ames, you're pretty average and you're pretty good at all of these sports, but if you were to just pick one, you could probably get really good. And I was like, that's all I needed to hear.
Right.
I was like, it's snowboarding. It was so obvious.
Yeah.
Everything else was just white noise and a distraction, really. And I think that's the same, and you can take that into everyday life now. It's so often day to day, especially in the freelance world, we can distract, we can, defocus ourselves from the actual goal.
Yeah.
But when you actually pick one thing that you love, if you stick to it, the opportunities are
there.
endless for progression.
But sometimes you have to try a whole lot of things in
Totally.
order to realize
To find
that-
what you love.
what you love, yeah, because it's not necessarily, the thing I notice a lot with people is that they're pushed and pigeonholed into choosing something very young in order to get on that ladder, and they haven't experienced enough to realize whether or not it's good.
I think it's tricky sometimes. I found snowboarding late. I'm a very passionate snowboarder, and I found snowboard. I'd skied a tiny bit up in Scotland as a kid,
Yeah.
and then went snowboarding when I was 24, and then 25. I quit my job in London. I went and did a season in Mirabel in the Alps, and I thought, right, I'm gonna give myself a shot. I worked in the Ronnie on the mountain. It was amazing, and I thought I'm gonna give myself a shot because I love snowboarding. I'd see if I can get really good at it, and I didn't. Accumulated fear was what really stopped my progression, because I think a lot of snowboarding, once you've got the fundamentals down, especially in the park, speed is kind of the next thing. To do more spins, you need to be going faster to get more air to spin more.
Yeah.
And I was just too scared in the end because it was just hurting too much.
Oh yeah.
And that was my limit. I was like, okay, like fair enough. That's probably like a backside 5 is probably about as good as it's going to get for me. And I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think anything where your feet are off the ground, you're rotating, around your body on a unnatural axis, it's impressive, right?
Yeah, and then landing it.
Yeah.
Well, mind you, breaking bones never hurts. It's only seconds later.
Yeah.
But
So you should never be afraid to break.
I feel like
you can be afraid of what the break can do to your life afterwards. So I think it depends on your career, your aspirations, how active you are, because to have that physical mobility taken away from you became a fear of mine.
Yeah.
right.
I didn't want to break my collarbone
Had you
my shoulder.
had you broken? But because you were very young when you started this snowboarding.
I didn't break anything in motocross. The first time I broke a bone was when I was 15. It was the first time we'd gone on like a proper family trip. I was so excited. I'd been waiting, 5 months to go for the first time to Breckenridge, Colorado, to ride these big jumps, to eventually maybe try the backflip. And within the first half an hour, I broke my collarbone on this double kink rail. So obviously it wasn't meant to be, and that gave me an air of respect when it came to progression, and it definitely slowed down my snowboarding progression, but it also gave me an awareness at the age of 15 that I actually no longer was invincible, because I used to sort of believe that I was, because I had ridden bikes.
But that's your age.
Yeah.
That's age, isn't it? I mean, you don't, when you're young, you just don't. And as well as that, when you're really young, you bounce. Now when I crashed, when you're young, you just bounce like that, and then now I just go, and I don't move
like
after that.
Yeah, it's
So
like
I just
like
collapse.
cement.
Yeah, it's like cement. A bag of cement on the thing. It just
Cement
it
to
lands
mashed
on the
potato.
ground. It just lands on the ground, and the bag splits.
Yeah,
And
or
that's-
But you say you developed fear at 15, but then you were the first woman in competition to land a double backflip.
so I think
So you weren't that scared to. I mean, you pushed the boundaries more than you were a trailblazer in terms of performing that trick.
Yeah, so I think that period of time, at the age of 15, breaking my first bone, gave me a level of respect, of fear. And I think that's something through any professional sport, especially extreme sports, you learn to manage. And you ride within your limits. And when you've reached a point where you're ready to progress, there's always an air of uncertainty. So when it came to the double, that was in 2012 or 13, I had so many air miles in being upside down that just doing a backflip became boring. So I think it's about getting so comfortable in one skill that it becomes so boring that the next step is only pure excitement rather than fear.
Right.
And it's at the point when everything becomes consumed by fear, you need to really question what you're doing and why you're doing it. And that is what happened to me eventually, at the age of 26. But in my heyday, it's about respecting fear, learning to manage it, and then working in and around the realms of it. Because you need to have fear because otherwise you'd be hurt constantly. So it's
But then
a respect
fear
thing.
fear is thing. I did the Dakar Rally and on a motorbike, and I did a lot of training in order to get up there. I thought I mentioned the Dakar Rally.
Every episode,
but
the Dakar Rally drops in.
But for me, the fear part of it, being scared, actually I quite enjoyed that feeling, and I think it gave me someone told me once that you should scare yourself at least once a week, at least, and I think it's quite true.
How old were you?
I was in my 30s.
Yeah. So it's different.
Yeah, but it was a different kind of feel, but it still was. I enjoyed it. I liked it. Now, the only reason I can't do it now is because I've broken too many bones and my legs just aren't strong enough anymore.
I'm not surprised by that because you said, yeah, breaking bones doesn't hurt.
But it doesn't until afterwards.
Yeah. See, for me, I had a series of injuries. And they were enough to put me off. Like I don't want to do that anymore. Yeah. Like it hurts.
This was for the snowboarding.
Yeah.
Is this why? Because you said just before we started, you said that you don't really snowboard anymore. You certainly don't compete anymore.
No.
But for the last how many years? Since
6 years.
For the last 6 years. So when you obviously came to a point you had injuries, you decided you didn't like this so much anymore. How did you get out?
So 2014 Olympics, I got myself into the most horrendous situation as far as qualification goes. So I was so blindsided by being the first woman to do a double in the X Games. I did my rotator cuff on the left, did the AC joint on the right, grade 2, had multiple injuries during the first Olympic qualification period.
Yeah.
And I was scared of committing to the goal of going to the Olympics because
and doing the double at the Olympics.
No, just my distraction was I want the shiny Red Bull helmet, I want the X Games glory. They're kind of two different things in snowboarding. Olympics, X Games, the sponsors, but to do the Olympics, you need the X Games, the sponsors, because who else is going to pay for it? So I was distracted by achieving that, which was, in the end, incredible. I, managed to land the double, but it came with, I suppose, like quite a bit of trauma because there were injuries along the way. So when it came to the last few qualifiers, so 24 girls can go to the Olympics. And I was sat like 62nd in the rankings because I'd missed one because of this shoulder. I'd missed another one because of that. And the qualification goes over a period of time. So I had the most immense pressure. And it wasn't until my mum said to me, so it was the November before the Olympics. Olympics is in February. And I was sat away down in the rankings. And it was the press day for Team GB. And I said to my mum, I don't think I'm going to go. And she's like, why? But why not? I'm like, well, because I've not qualified. So why would I go? And she went, you're going unless somebody tells you otherwise. So that's something that really sticks permanently within my mind still today. And it was her saying that allowed me to change the perspective, commit to the goal. I was like, I am going to the Olympics. I want to go. And I needed a top 12 or better in the first competition of that season, and I got 11th out of 62 girls. And then the final qualifier in the January, post-Christmas, Christmas was stressful. There was a lot of lonely walks up and down streets of Frisco, Colorado, and I needed top 6 or better. We'd worked out the maths.
Yeah.
I somehow managed to get 5th. Honestly, achieving...
So both times you just
made it.
Got in there.
And those 2 moments were defining of me as a person because I've never wanted something more. I've never admitted to wanting something more in my life, and I achieved it. So that then reframed pressure, my mindset. So actually, the first thing I did post-Olympics in 2014 did my motorbike test on the road. And everyone's like, oh, you're not nervous, riding a big bike.
No,
I'm like, no,
this is a fucking holiday,
This is cool. Like, it was a holiday. It was like a week of, tootling around in a car park on a big bike. You drop the bike, you move out the way. Like, nothing's going to happen.
But did you, just on the day though, was there just that little bit
No,
of like,
I didn't care.
if I'm going to fail?
I didn't
Didn't care.
How can you be defined by that when there's something else that you've experienced that you want so much? So that helped me reframe pressure, fear, and everything else. So then you fast forward.
Well, that wasn't even pressure of the competition. That was pressure to get to the competition.
Yeah, and often that's the hardest part.
Well, that is the hardest part, isn't it? Because Etienne, the guy who runs the Dakar Rally, the French guy, he said he finally got to the start, and he said, "Charlie, you've won." And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, you've got to the start line." He said, "That's the hardest.
Yeah.
That's the hardest bit." He said, "Now," he said, "every day is a bonus. So go and enjoy yourself now."
It's that commitment to do something, isn't it?
It's not
it's
as
just
easy as that, because
to...
you still got to finish every day.
Yeah,
and you still got to
get through it, right?
Yeah.
But so then going into my second Olympics, I had a completely different mindset. I qualified within the first sort of 8 months of events. I was ranked in the top 3 in big air and the top 5 in slopestyle. So I'd sort of sealed the deal going into it, which then meant I had quite a bit of time before the Olympics, which was kind of free time, training time. And it was in that window of time where things really built up, and I did start to become defined by fear. And that was purely, you asked me at the start of this very long story about how did I get out of snowboarding. It was very easy, actually, because I was scared, I was fearful, I admitted my fear, I didn't enjoy it anymore.
Yeah.
And I had another interest. And I think that's where it is great to not be defined by one
one thing.
Yeah.
One thing. And,
Sure.
there's more to every athlete or every motorbike rider than just that. Like,
And there's always someone better, isn't there? So it's always going to be, the next person coming through.
True, but also there's more to you than someone being better than you.
Yeah.
And that was always my thing. It was like, I'm kind of bored of this now. I've done it, I've pushed myself, I've had an incredible career, and I want to try something new. And I suppose if you look at my childhood, it's kind of similar, trying all the different sports, but, I well and truly did snowboarding. I did it professionally for 10 years.
Well, 2 Olympics is pretty impressive.
2 Olympics, multiple X Games, had a fab career, but actually, I don't need to be defined by this. There's more to life. So that's when I started expanding out into media.
And you're even by that stage. I mean, you were. I mean, can I ask how old you were when you decided to stop then?
Yeah, I was 26.
26.
So
26.
it's quite young.
But you'd had from 6 years old. So you'd had a 20-year career, more or less.
Yeah.
From motocross to
totally.
gymnastics to the Olympics. So you'd had a 20-year career that some people wouldn't have started until they were 20.
Yeah.
And was it that moment, sort of wanting to go into media, was that sort of, I want to present, I want to talk, and was that moment in the Olympics when you didn't qualify for the final? Was that 2018? And then you ended up in the commentary booth with Ed and
That was 2014.
Oh, was that 2014?
But in 2018, after the big air, I got invited to join BBC Breakfast for the morning to sort of comment on the snowboarding punditry.
Yes, I remember, yeah.
And I had such a great time that I got asked back the next day.
And no pressure either, was there?
No,
you weren't just competing.
I just went and was myself, and I loved every single second of that. And it was really those 2 mornings, on the breakfast sofa, where I thought, I really like this. It's really clear for me.
Yeah.
There is no clear route to the success of becoming a presenter, but it's very clear what I enjoy. So ever since that day, I've followed my gut, and manifestation is a big part of that. It's putting it out there, putting yourself where you need to be, investing, creating. It's just like doing a podcast, It's you've got to put yourself in the space to have the opportunity within the space.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
how does motorcycles now? I know you passed your test. You passed it first time.
Yeah.
I'm guessing. And then how does that fit in with your life now?
You know what? It's just like a really nice hobby. So actually, right before the 2014 Olympics was the last time I properly rode a motocross bike, and it was with Rachel Atherton, and we were in Northern Ireland.
The downhill
Yeah.
mountain biker.
Yeah, and
world
it
champion.
was super rogue. Again, it was kind of, if it's meant to be, I will qualify for the snowboarding Olympics, but at the same time, just to let off a bit of steam, I rode a motocross bike like 3 weeks before a qualifier, which is just bizarre now when I look back at it.
I can imagine, yeah.
But
I can
it
imagine.
helped relieve the pressure. And now I just ride recreationally. I've done a trip to Norway with a couple of the snowboard girls. I roguely rented a KTM 690 Duke off some Scandi guy through Facebook Messenger, and we did a tour with our snowboards, you know, north of Norway all the way up to Folagfonna, and camped and did the glacial snowboarding in the summer. And then now...
What a part of the
sounds
world,
fun.
isn't it?
Why
Yeah.
haven't we
I
done
just-
that?
Well, I've been up there.
Glacial
Not
snowboarding on
glacial
motorbikes.
snowboard, but
That's like, we need to do that.
I'll have to share some imagery with
Yeah.
you of that, because it's pretty spectacular. And then other than that, I had a bike here when I was in London for a bit. But also it's a little tricky, you know, and I always was quite worried of it being stolen.
Sure,
So
it's a big
ridden
big worry
epidemic.
in
here.
London.
multiple triumphs. I had the bobber for a while, which was awesome. Last time I was on a bike actually was Goodwood Festival of Speed last year. I rode up the hill and this massive thing, I don't even know what it was. I'm not too fussed for what it is, I just get on it and ride it.
It's the
And
riding that's
I
the
think
thing. Yeah.
it's the freedom it gives you. And
Sure.
one
Yeah.
thing that I've really enjoyed recently, I mean, I've done all sorts of different bike riding of different sorts, but one thing I enjoy the most is the freedom that two wheels gives you when you go island hopping in Greece. So for the last 4 years, I've rented a scooter, gone with backpacks to Mykonos, get the scooter delivered at the airport, and we just cruise, do 2 or 3 nights in Mykonos, and then it, you know, the world is our oyster. 10 days, and you just hop on and off the ferry on the scooter, and
It's great. And there's
just
no
wicked.
queues, is there? There's no all the cars are waiting to get on the
You
on the
see
on
everyone
the
with
boats,
their-
and you just nip in and
You see everyone else
and they
with
let you
their
on first,
suitcases,
don't you?
And
Yeah.
you're like, mugs.
Yeah.
And you're just there
Yeah.
with a backpack, pair of heels, bikini, some running trainers, and you're
And then
good
you get
to
the
go.
full experience. You get the change
Yeah.
in the smell, the different islands, just as you're moving
Croatia's a
through. It's-
really nice place to
Oh,
go
is
as well.
it?
Oh,
to
yeah.
go to Split and Hvar and all those little different places. It's on the scooters is really nice.
Is it? Okay,
Yeah,
maybe
it's great.
that's on the
Well,
bucket
you,
list
you can
for
go to
next year.
Hvar and you get a little scooter. It's a small island, but
Yeah.
it's wow.
I went
It's
sailing
beautiful.
around there on a holiday. I
But,
can't recommend it enough.
But it is nice, isn't it?
so
It gives you
nice.
that freedom,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
Totally,
And nice
totally.
to have some like-minded people who you do it with as well.
Yeah,
there's,
totally.
there's a real sort of buddy camaraderie ship.
One of
kind feeling.
my girlfriends, actually, she's an amazing bike rider. She's a stunty, Lucy Corp. So occasionally we'll get on the bikes and go for a little ride together. But I think it's definitely more of a not being in London thing. You know, it's like, how can I evade London?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's on 2 wheels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
For sure.
Hey guys, I just wanted to say that Quadlock are joining us this season on the Nod Pod. And as we all know, fantastic brand.
Great bit of kit, and check out all the links in the bios. There's a little discount code for all of you lovely people to go and get some quad locks yourself.
Yeah, I've been using them for years.
We ride bikes for lots of reasons, but one of the benefits that we acknowledge now and understand that certainly we didn't for years was the mindfulness of riding motorcycles and being present, and that reset that you get by just clearing your head and thinking about nothing else but you and the road and the bike and just being in that moment.
I totally understand the switch off that motorcycles can bring people. And my dad would speak about that. My dad's got ADHD, dyslexia, the lot, and I've probably inherited that undiagnosed. But my best friend would tell you I definitely have all of those things. And I think it gives us the ability to tune in, the words that my dad uses. That's sort of his happy place. So I understand that. I think I get my mindful fix with less equipment. You know, snowboarding requires a lot of equipment. bikes require a lot of equipment. Unless you're on a scooter in Greece, that's different again. For me, it's so simple, and it's jogging and yoga, because you need nothing. Yeah. And that now, day to day, living in a busy city, gives me the ultimate switch off, and it's very accessible. So I think if I lived somewhere else, I would maybe turn my hand to bikes quicker. But with where I live right now, you know, in a busy city, it's not my most accessible switch off.
Yeah,
and when it comes to dealing with mental health, mindfulness, I think we all need a tool that's easily and readily accessible, because we can need it at any moment. And that's what's been so great about my podcast also, is I've learned so much through the 130 Monday miles I've walked, through all of my guests who are from a multitude of different backgrounds and how they deal with pressure and switching off. And I think it's whatever works for you. There's no right, there's no wrong. And I know for a fact that I've experienced it on a bike, but I've not been on a bike enough to be able to tell you that's my switch off.
Yeah.
My switch off is quite simply going for a walk, going for a run, and removing the pressure from any of these external, activities, not looking for validation, literally just purely doing it for your soul. And I think that's my happy place. I need that.
Yeah.
I definitely need that.
When did you start to understand that, have that consciousness that I imagine, Team GB, did they have mental health coaches in place back then, or was this
back in the day?
Back in the day, yeah.
It was not that long ago.
I know, but mental health's come a long way in the last 5-6 years.
I saw a psychologist once when I was 25 years old, and that was at the point where I was going into my second Olympics. I wasn't enjoying it. I was fearful. My nan was diagnosed with cancer, and I'd split up with my boyfriend of 5 years. So there was quite a lot going on in my life. And the most incredible thing about that one conversation was that everything I felt was okay to feel that. And everybody has
It's normal. Yeah.
different types of motivation, external and intrinsic. And my intrinsic motivation, which as a snowboarder, you probably shouldn't admit, but it was like, I wanted to do another Olympics just so I could have a career afterwards, right? But snowboarders are cool. Like bike riders, we just want to shred because we love it.
Yeah.
I tell you what, flipping off a jump in -30 when it's icy and windy in Quebec is not cool and it's not fun. So once I'd understood that my feelings were okay, it gave me the validation to not enjoy it and just get it done, because it became a job.
A job, yeah. And people have that all their lives sometimes, don't they?
Yeah, totally.
So it's good you can understand that so young as well, and deal with it.
I'm a big one for like controlling the controllables. So I use the term freelance because you're in an ever-changing environment every single day. What can you control? So as a snowboarder, when I was qualifying, going from Canada to France to China, back to the States to then Switzerland over 5 weeks, my only controllable that I could really have was, I can't control the conditions. I can't control whether the flight's going to turn up on time and my snowboard bag, but I can bring my yoga mat in my hand luggage.
Yeah.
And I can do half an hour when I wake up and half an hour before I go to bed. And it was just having a tiny sense that through the rogueness of life, I that was the one thing I could control, and that was my mindfulness, and that was, I'd say my learning. That was what got me through it.
Yeah. And that's just stayed with you. And who introduced you to yoga? Was that?
We've got to shout out to the legend, Leslie McKenna. She was a Scottish snowboarder, 4-time Olympic halfpipe rider. And she sort of became my mentor, and then started working with Team GB, and she was head of performance when I was riding. And from a very young age of 16, when things really kicked off for me, she started teaching us all this, at the time for me, voodoo stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I considered it at the age of 16. But
of course.
At the age of 22, it became a part of what I needed. And she installed those basic foundations of understanding how it could help me or us,
Yeah. So but you were able to, but I think, a lot of people, find stuff at different points in their life. And I think nowadays there's this huge acknowledgement that mental health is a thing, which is great, and awareness is better than it's ever been. But it really is about that personal journey to find out what works for you, right? And there's
totally.
a million things you can do. You can ride a bike, you can do yoga, you can do guided meditation, you can do download
And
an
it might
app,
not work.
you can hug a tree. But
Yeah,
until you actually
absolutely.
understand,
Well, you have to want it as well, don't you?
you have to. But you have to
You have
understand
to-
yourself. Do you have to like your training for snowboarding? The training you did would be optimized physically and technically optimized for what you wanted to achieve,
Yeah.
right? And what your body reacted to and how you best reacted to the training.
Yeah.
So you put in the processes that optimized your performance physically.
I probably did too much, to be totally honest with you.
But really, we're over.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So
I overtrained. Now looking back, I can tell
Yeah.
you, I was definitely probably like, yeah, I did everything on a excessive level, and then
Didn't drink enough.
no. Did like genuinely like the start of my career was the best. It was so much fun, so much freedom. It was the rogue days of snowboarding. You know, the parties were insane. Whereas when it changed a bit and it got all a bit Olympic-y and serious, I didn't drink for a year. I had one vodka the day I learned I qualified, but I just didn't want it, you know? And I think, in a way, being so strict made me fall out of love with it because it became too much.
Too much.
Too much of a job.
And you put too much pressure on yourself, probably without even realizing.
Yeah, totally. Because that's what's funny, you know, if you throw it back to kind of the first question you asked me as we arrived here today, it's like, oh, you know, do you snowboard anymore? Like, my relationship with snowboarding is completely different now. It's not doing double backflips or cab double 900s or perfect jumps wearing a Red Bull helmet. It's, you know, last year I went my first ever snowboarding holiday to Morzine, which was somewhere I went a lot when I was younger. And it was an accumulation of me and my best friends and my best friend and some of her friends. And we all came together and it was just the most beautiful mixing pot of different talents, different energy, different abilities. Everybody snowboarded and we all met at the Folly Juice. And that's where the real mixing pot of fun came along. Like, it made me fall back in love with snowboarding. But I definitely walked away from a competition and I'd consciously run through every scenario in my head and I was okay with it. But walking away that day in Quebec meant that a year later I had to come back and I had to be in the top 6.
Right.
So I'd consciously made that decision, but I knew I wasn't fit enough mentally or physically to perform that day. So it wouldn't have served me.
Yeah.
So I was okay with the decision.
Yeah.
What do you want to just power through it to be miserable and potentially hurt yourself and take yourself out for 6 months? Or do you walk away with your head held high, go and practice, get strong and come back a year later? And that's where I think I did have a very good head on me, was that I didn't just do what I thought I should do. And that also is based off good parenting, not having pushy parents. My mum, again, always said, like, if you don't want to do it, it doesn't feel right, don't do it. You know best. And it was that was running through my head. I'm like, I've got Leslie going, Aimee, you really need to do this because you need to qualify. And then I'm looking at the jumps going, well, this shoulder feels like it's still, you know, it was 3 weeks afterwards, so I couldn't really...
It was weak.
Yeah, the impact was hurting every time I landed. I wasn't comfortable. I wasn't confident. I wasn't going to perform. I knew I didn't have it within me. So I decided, well, you can all think what you like, but I'm okay with it because I know I will be able to turn it around and come back in my own time. So I think time is very important, time frames and pressure.
Were you surprised about the media's reaction? Did you feel?
I didn't tell anyone. No one needed to know.
Yeah.
It's a World Cup. There's 70 girls and 120 men. It just says DNF.
DNF. Yeah. You just
doesn't matter. No one needs to know your business. That's where I think it's probably interesting now on social media, because a lot more would be.
It's harder, much harder now, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's
because you sell nowadays. You're selling yourself on social media because you need the sponsorship. You need that. It's so competitive out there, isn't it? So
I think that's a really powerful mindset that you had at that point, where a lot of people don't have that, and that's what can often lead into a lot of struggles. I certainly, I talk about this conscious and subconscious thought and decision making. And if you're making decisions, I had cancer a couple of times and chemo, and in my 20s and 30s. That's why I didn't stay out in the mountains, because I got cancer after my first season. Then I had to be here for follow-ups and stuff. So kind of ruined my mountain dream forever. But post the second diagnosis and chemo, I was making I wasn't in a good place mentally, and I was making a lot of decisions without thinking about the consequences of those decisions, without acknowledging the decisions I was making. I might be going out drinking when I should have been going home. I was doing them because I needed to. I needed a release. I needed something. I needed to do something to release everything that was going on in my mental health. But I wasn't acknowledging that, and I wasn't acknowledging the reasons I was making those decisions. And because of that, they became these subconscious decisions that just started to spiral into just a litany of bad decision making, which other people around me couldn't understand, because I wasn't vocalizing the reasons I was making them, because I wasn't doing that internally myself.
You didn't understand yourself, did you?
If you've already vocalized that internally with yourself, I'm going to make this decision because of these reasons, and I acknowledge that that's a difficult decision that will impact lots of things, but I've already accepted that in my own head. I think once I learned to do that, it made it a lot easier to stay mentally well and to understand what was going on, and it made it a lot easier for everyone around me to process it, because they had an explanation then. It wasn't just, what the hell is he doing? These are really weird decisions, or he's making these decisions. It's like, well, okay, he's acknowledged why, he's said why he's made that decision. Everybody else can kind of,
But
whether they
also-
like it or
But
not, at least they
also,
can get on board
nobody
with
else
it.
cares.
No one else
the
cares,
sooner,
yeah.
the sooner you
Yeah.
realise no one cares, it's only you that cares.
No,
Like,
that's true.
it's the same in the press, it's the same in the media. No one reads it, nobody cares.
No, it's true. It's interesting what you said about walking away from that competition, and all it said out of all those people is it did not finish, and that's it.
And somebody else can't make me feel bad about a decision that I've taken into my own hands. You hold the power. Nobody else does. So listen to your gut, I think is and was my biggest learning throughout my career. And there are probably times where I shouldn't have listened to it. But we will never be...
But the gut has to grow, doesn't it?
Yeah, we will never be defined by those moments, because there's more to life than one moment.
I think I stand here today and I look back at all the mistakes, the injuries, the whatever, the what ifs, the amount of times I've sat there in hospital going, God, if I just left that hotel a minute earlier, nothing would have happened, right? But actually, the fact is that all of those things have made me the person I am today. I wouldn't be sitting here doing this if it wasn't for all the mistakes, all the what ifs.
They shape us.
They shape us, yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. It's all ended quite badly, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Well,
You're
my what's that word? You're my little pet.
Oh, right. Oh.
Pet experience. So, what's next? Where are you? What's going on?
Well, this weekend I ran the Hackney Half and presented it. It's sort of a new role that I've kind of formulated. So the first time I did it was 2 years ago for the Great North Run for BBC Sport. I run with a producer and we live stream into the live feed and do different throws.
So during the competitions they throw to you while you're running along.
So I interview people
and
as
you
I
can
run
talk
along.
and run. Fuck me, I couldn't do that.
I mean,
Actually,
impressive,
the first sort of TV opportunity that I had off the back of snowboarding was a documentary called Running in North Korea. So I went to North Korea to run my first ever marathon. So running,
quite niche, isn't it?
Yeah, it's super
It's a
niche.
first opportunity.
Yeah.
Most people want to go out of North Korea. And you're
went
going in.
Were you just like the only person they could find to
I mean,
do
if
it.
we open the North Korea tab, we'll be here all day.
Yeah.
But you can watch it on YouTube, Running in North Korea. And it is exactly as you imagine on the documentaries and more.
just weird?
I'm doing all sorts. Obviously, the Winter Olympics is coming up in 8 months' time.
Yeah.
So I'll be presenting on that. And then I
wonderful.
do multiple features across BBC's Morning Live based on mindset, blue health, wellness. So kind of really just sharing my love for movement and wellness across multiple outlets.
You know,
Well, how
so-
nice to have a something afterwards. I think lots of people struggle, don't they, when they've been in a high sport or achieved highly to be able to have a life after that. It can be
totally.
very difficult for people.
Yeah,
It
and
just
you
seems
know,
like you've smashed it.
it's not a given. It's not given to you. The grind is real, and you're
Nothing's
only
given.
ever as good as your last job. So we keep chasing and we keep getting better. And through every single person you speak to, you learn something. And that's how I've sort of implemented everything I do further. Is, you know, each conversation is a learning. And
just work hard and be kind and
yeah,
don't
it's
be a
kind of
dick,
it's
kinda
kind of that
helps, isn't it?
simple, really.
Yeah.
But also enjoy the process, because not every day is a given, right?
No,
And
absolutely.
yeah. Thank you for listening to The Nod, a mindful motorcycle podcast. We'll be back next week with another guest, powered by Devitt Insurance, supported by Quadlock. And until then, take care, look
See you
after
later.
yourselves. Check in with the mate.
Yeah. Are you okay?
I'm good, mate.
Yeah.
You?
Yeah. No, well, actually, it all started when I was 2 years old.